Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. So good to be spending this Monday with you. Yes, here in Brisbane, Australia, it is 1 p.m. on a Monday. Of course, so many of you, it's currently a Sunday, and for those of you who watch this as a show, which as a replay, it's probably even later still. Not as in during the week. It's March here. Do you know we're already into March? I hope you're enjoying, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you're enjoying your last day of February. Yes, it's crazy. The year, the 2021 is already well underway. We have a special guest today, Kate Baker. She hasn't been on the show for a little while, but it's going to be great to have her back. And today we are going to be talking about auditions, and I am really looking forward to this conversation because auditions, you know, they're a bit of an art form in and of themselves, and you know, over the years I know I've learned a number of valuable, sometimes hard lessons around auditions, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about a number of the things that you can learn to do as well as learn to avoid, and so that'll be good. I think we're just going to get straight into it today because we always like to spend as much time as we possibly can with our guests. So let's jump in here.
Sound
and
check. Check one,
we'll
check
have
two.
our guest on.
Hi, Dr. Dan.
G'day, Kate. I'm. Do you know what? I'm pushing all the wrong buttons. Is what just happened. I don't. I think we got away with it, but I was pushing all the wrong buttons. So good to have you on the show again, Kate. Thank you for joining us for what is, you know, 10 p.m. on a Sunday evening for you.
I'm so happy to be here.
And you're joining us from Jersey, which prior to the show you were educating me as to where Jersey is, because being an Aussie, I wasn't completely clear, but it's half an hour out of New York. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Kate, just very quickly tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've been on the show with us before.
Right.
There's so many people that now watch the show that I don't think have met you yet. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to jump into today's topic, which is singing auditions.
Okay. Well, I'm on faculty at the New School University, and I've been teaching privately for over like 35 years. I have students on all those shows that you watch, and I teach a lot of professional singers, mostly professionals. Mm-hmm. And you know, my singers have done very well on those shows. And the most important thing that I'm doing now, because in fact, I just got through about a couple hundred rounds of auditions, and my partner, Elizabeth Lontinger, and we came up with something called Vocal Musician, which I'm so proud of, because there's so many times when you know, we're both in there watching these auditions and going, God, if they only knew this, if they only knew this, you know, and you know, you could hear so much potential. And it was funny because a friend of mine who's a great singer, well known, and she's like, oh my God, this is terrific. I wish I had this, because when I started music school, I quit because it went over my head. So it's theory, ear training, and applied solfeggio. So you really start to understand, you know, and you're not so nervous. So you understand 1, 4, 5, and it starts very basic understanding about the one and do and sol, and really hearing the changes.
Yeah.
And discovering musicianship, because it's like your vocabulary. And I find that singers, what happens in some of these auditions, and you can hear it, is they're listening to the melody, right? Do you know what I mean, guys?
Yeah.
Right? You're listening to, let me get the notes, right? But instead of that, imagine if you listened from the bottom up, okay? And you listened from the root. Now, even if you were going to sing it a cappella, guess what? Now you're in the groove because you're hearing the music in your head. And that's really an important and essential. So understanding, even if we're in the key of C, do, and then sol, those patterns, and then 1-4-5. And that stems the blues. So it's like these basic concepts that if you practice them and you really get them down, everything opens up. Your songwriting opens up. And what made this so special was the fact that both Elizabeth and I are singers, and it's coming from singers. So we know what happens to singers when all the information goes over our head. We have to internalize it, and we have to make it so, all right, I understand this, I get it. And we know that even as teachers, we're like, we can't, as private teachers can't get to all this stuff because we're concentrating on the song and the voice. So that's something that I'm really proud of that I'm doing right now.
It's just a reminder, isn't it, that music always happens within a context.
Yes.
We do become so fixated as singers on, remembering lyric and singing the melody accurately that we can become so fixated on just those two events that we lose the context, we lose the environment within which we are applying those two activities.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I noticed in teaching all these years is, you want the singers to be their own teachers, you know what I mean? And know how to practice. Because singers are social people, right?
Yeah.
We love to talk, we like to do things together.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that you know how to break it down. So you can start and hear in 4-bar phrases and then in 8-bar phrases. And if you can't get it, repeat it. When I would be working with a student and we would work with the vocal technique, right, to get it in there. So we may do that on an exercise where we're just getting that melody in. And if you played the bass notes and snap on 2 and 4 and sing the melody, you can start to hear the relationship of the bass against the voice. So those little things really help the singer out. Yeah. Because now we're going, all right, now I hear that relationship. I'm not picking notes out of the sky. And too many times that's what happens. And when you get nervous, guess what? When you get nervous, it's a really interesting thing because our blood flow changes and then we forget. And then we go back to what we knew before. So if we start to get it internally, and that's what I tell my singers, they're like, but I get scared on an audition. What do I do? I said, you got to know it like the back of your hand. And I think you have to become a singer in your everyday life, not just this is my practice time, but walk around the street and say your lyrics, sing the tune. Like it can't just be, okay, I'm going to sit and practice. You're doing the dishes, So singing becomes second nature.
Yeah.
So the melody isn't a question when you're going to do it. And with my husband was a great guitar player, one of the best in the world. His name was Djarts. And he's known, if you could Google him, you'll see it's all over the place. He would play, anyone who knows jazz knows him. And he was known for changing the harmony, right? Like really changing it up. So I would practice like this, I'd do all this stuff, and I'd get on the gig and it's like, what are you playing? But if you really, I'm like, oh my God. So, but I think the point is that when you're really steady in yourself, then you can go to the art of communication. But until you really know the tune, and that's why, again, a vocal musician is so important, that now I know it, and now I don't care what you do because I'm going to take you other places too. So, I think that's really important. Dan, here you are.
I'm still here. Yes, yeah. I'm pressing buttons, and but now you've been really kind because vocalmusician.org .org, which we can see written
Yes.
there, which was, I had spelt incorrectly before, but now I've fixed that. People can go and check that out, and it's, of course, it's an online course. Now, you've been so kind. Everyone, Kate is giving us 25% off when you put in Dr. Dan 25 off, all underscore under lowercase, I would think. Dr. Dan 25.
Uppercase. It's all caps.
It's all caps, is it? All caps.
It's probably, it may not even be cap sensitive.
May not even
try
matter.
all caps.
But anyway, Dr. Dan 25 off, as in the numerals 25 off.
Yes.
And so everyone can jump over there and have a look at that, because it's, working music in context is so important. I think it's a great segue into talking about auditions, because we do come to, often we arrive at auditions with a great sense of trepidation and nerves, and so let's talk through, because it was actually yourself, wasn't it, who you emailed me last year, and I couldn't, the schedule of the show, I just couldn't fit you in. I'm thinking, where can I get Kate in? And I just couldn't. I was so full. But anyway, and Kate, just to let you know, we had so many technical issues with the show at the end of the last year. It's probably a good thing that you weren't on the show. But anyway, fortunately, our technical issues have been resolved. I hope. Fingers crossed. And you said you wanted to talk about auditions, and you were particularly thinking of auditioning for college, and people even now are in the lead up to doing that. Talk me through, when you've got a student who comes in and they're wanting to prepare for an audition, and an audition can be for college, it can be for a TV talent show, which was the subject you and I ended up talking about last time you were on the show. We got distracted. And what was the other thing? For a band, for a music theatre. There's so many reasons why a singer might be preparing for an audition. What are some of the things, the really simple things that you will step a singer through in the lead up to an audition?
Okay, the first thing is picking out a tune. So a lot of times you want contrasting tunes, and they don't have to be. Now, here's a really important point, guys. I don't want to see what you can't do. I want you to hide that, okay? So don't pick out music that's way too hard for you, all right? That's the first thing. You want to pick something also that you can gravitate to, that the lyrics mean something. Because when it comes down to it, you know what's really important? If you connect to it emotionally. If you tell me the story, and even if you hit a few notes that aren't happening, right? But if you tell the story, so there's a couple things I would want to do when you're preparing for a tune. So let's walk it through. So let's say you pick this tune, all right, and you will take the tune and take the lyrics, and I want you to first say them like it's a poem. So so not like, all right, both sides now, we all know that, right? Bows and flows of angel's hair and ice cream castle in the air. No. Bows and flows of angel's hair and ice cream castle in the air. And so try to make it, take those lyrics and feathered canyons everywhere. I've looked at life or love somehow, right? I don't have them in front of me. It just came to my head. But so I've looked at life. But now what happens if I say I've looked at life, right? What happens if I say I've looked at life? There's a difference, and those slight differences make the phrasing. So you want to not do it like where the breaks are in the song naturally, okay? I want you to do it like you're just reciting a poem. The key is, do not take your lyrics off the internet. I want you to write them by hand because it makes you remember them. And then I want you to put commas in. I want you to say it a few different ways. I want you to then say, what is this about? What is this song about for me? And what emotion does it bring up? Not just, okay, this is the story, but what's the emotion behind it? When was it written? What was happening in the country when that was written? Like if you're taking something like what's going on, mother, so it's things like that, like what was happening then? Is it the civil rights? Is it this, and what was happening with the artist? So if you're taking a song that somebody wrote, I want you to research who that person is, why they wrote that song, because the intent is the most important thing. That's how you're going to come to your own authenticity. So your intent, that's number one. All right. Saying the lyrics, going to the emotional point of what it is. Is it vulnerability? Is it, oh my God, heartbreak? But what is heartbreak really? Can you be that open? Like, what is heartbreak? What does that feel like to you? That pain, what does that pain feel like? Can you feel that and tell that story? In our lives, we're so used to putting up all these walls, right? So we get through. But guess what? For artists, we have to take down the walls.
Yeah.
So one student once said to me, she's like, Kate, I think I'm just too sensitive for this career. I said, no, and that's why you're amazing. Because that's why you write the songs you do. Do not change that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's what's really important, like what that is to you. Where does it hit home? So when you gravitate to that, so now we have the lyrics, right? And now, then the other point is, okay, the harmony of the tune. The tune. What is the harmony? That's like I said before, sing the roots. And then I always take it also technically. So I would do it on a few things. You could do it like, Dan, there's one in particular I really love. An exercise where you would go like this. With the airflow. Because you'll notice that a lot of the singers, you have tight jaws and tight tongues, right? So you could first do it with, everyone does the bubble thing. And then you could do it like on an exercise that you're working with your teacher. And then maybe on this, so you would take it in 8-bar phrases. So you really take your time and work out the tension, and work out, all right. And when you pick a key for this tune, that's important too. I don't pick a key that's high just because the singer sings it up there. Who cares? I want to know where your sweet spot is. So where does the most of the song lie? And then on the top notes, the interesting thing, a lot of auditions right now are on Zoom. Do you notice, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything live, right? It's really funny.
Everything's on Zoom.
I know. So I would tell you something. Don't shout.
Yeah, right.
Pop the voice. Mean it, pop the voice. Please, it's really, and make sure your sound is good. Make sure you have a good sound. Check it with someone when you're auditioning. That's really important. And make sure that the camera's not positioned in a weird place. Those things. And look at that green light. So you're talking to somebody and you're singing to somebody, and even though there's nobody there, And I would say when you're doing that, when you're telling that story and you're finding that key, don't think, oh God, I want to show off my voice. I want to show them what I can do. I have a funny story. I have this student. She's adorable and she's a great singer. And she was coming for an audition at the school I was teaching at. And I said, and she's a belter. And I'm like, okay, if you belt this, you know what? You're going to get no scholarship money. Really, Kate? I was not being honest, but but I didn't want her screaming in there. So she sang beautifully and she didn't belt one note. And then afterwards, and she goes, yeah, but this is boring. And it was great. One of the other, I saw the judges gave her a 10. And I was like, yeah, because it sounded great. What she was trying to do at her young age was impress. But what we wanted was her heart. So we want your heart, and we want, like, who are you? What's your sound? How can you make this song different? and not because you're trying to, because of what it means to you.
Can I at this point just once again, for everyone who watches the show regularly, or if you're watching the show for the first time, just once again really highlight what Kate is saying. It's something that we say here on the channel all the time. I say it all the time. The guests say it all the time, because you know we have so many just fabulous guests like you, Kate, come on the show, really high quality singing teachers, and we're always all saying the same thing, is that singing is not about the perfect notes. Singing is about the communication. We want you to communicate with us. And it's when we have that level of authenticity, and that when you attach yourself to another person's heart, and in this case we're talking about the person sitting on the audition panel, when you move that person, that's when you get remembered. That's when you stand out. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And I want to also tell you my biggest lesson.
Please do.
Okay, so it was funny. I will share this with you. It was very special. When my I have to relate to, well, with my husband, right? In the later part of his life, when we were playing music together, something really special happened. We got into this place where music, I felt like I was singing on a cloud, like a bed of trust, and where we just communicated with each other. And that was the most amazing feeling. And guess what would happen, guys? The room would get completely quiet. And meanwhile, we've been performing for years. So it was that thing where it's just about that communication. And when you learn about voice, it's so funny. It would hit me because the things I would say, trust, be in the moment, and listen to your partner, or listen to each other. And that's about learning about life. And isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's the same lessons. So when we were able to let go of everything and we can just communicate, and when I would sing, I never listened to myself. I could hear myself, but I wouldn't listen. I listened to him. And it was like we were talking. And that's why you have to get past all the music, like get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So now what we have is our bare souls. And when you have that, it's the most amazing feeling that nothing can compare to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And case in point, when we think about, and we're not going to go down the tributary of TV talent shows. We're not going to do that today, because we made that mistake last time you were on the show. However, the very thing that TV talent shows tap into is, and excuse, I don't know if you can hear that, I've got work going outside. There's a at the most untimely moment. But anyway, the very thing about the thing that TV talent shows cash in on is this sense of communication. We see it in the adverts. People are crying in response to the moment that's been created. Now, to a certain extent, that's been rather fabricated for a TV talent show audience. However, the underlying truism remains true, and that is that's what people respond to. People don't respond to perfect notes. You might get that really highfalutin audience who, that's what they're there to listen to. But for the most part, your general audience is going to respond to that authentic connection point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's a really interesting point? I want you to embrace mistakes. And out of mistakes, and I want you to plan. So when you're practicing with your teacher, with yourself, plan a mistake. Okay? Because here's the thing. I think the biggest misconception thinking is, I can't make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. Forget it. You will make a mistake. We make mistakes. We're human, and out of the mistakes, I want you to reformat that's where the magic happens. And you know who told me that? Tuck and Patty. Patty was like, and she said, we would tell each other, Tuck and Patty would say to each other, I don't care if we're on the Grammy stage, and because they've won many Grammys, or, but wherever it is, we're going to go for it, and let the spirit of the music take you there, and trust the spirit, and give yourself a break about your voice. So many people are so hard on their voices, and as singers, we all go through that. Why don't you give your voice a break and just try to love it,
Yeah. How true is that? That for pretty much every aspect of our lives. But, when it comes to singing, because, and the older I get, the more aware of this I am, how connected our voice is to our psyche, and the very central, part of our being. Our voice is a representation of that. And so when we take that into an audition space, it's one of the biggest challenges I think we find is that nerves crowd in, and everything tries to, our memory goes because of adrenaline, and we can, in that moment, all too easily forget to be vulnerable. I think so many of us would want to make the choice to be vulnerable, and I'm not seeing any comments in the live chat currently that would suggest otherwise. I think everyone would agree, but I think the challenge is to simply do it, so once we're sort of getting to that point, what are some of the next things that you'd be encouraging in the lead up? And notice, everyone, we haven't yet got to actually being in the space of an audition. We're still just talking about the prep. What's some other preparatory items that you can suggest for us, Kate, in the lead up, the preparation for auditions?
Okay, so now we covered doing it technically, right?
Yeah.
We covered also playing through your bass notes, right? We covered now singing through your chord changes, because if you have a wrong note, you're only a half step away from a good one.
Yeah. Yes. That's true.
Okay. Right?
Hopefully it's only a half step, but yep.
Right? Yeah. Just slide over a little bit.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And then you can play patterns in the changes too. Like if it's a C, you could play like 1, 2, 3, 5 on the changes, like after you play through the chords, right? The other thing, what's nice too, is, you could lead in, right? So what did I do? I approached in, and then let's say if it went to a 5, right? You could do that through your tunes. Another thing so those are some technical things that, frankly, the more attached I am to the music, the more I know it, and then the stronger I am. So I always play through the changes. So I would play through the changes through that. I would play through the chord tones. I would also play, like, you could sing through the roots, right? If this is a 2, 5, 1, 2, right? And then go to the 5, and then to the 1. And now sing the third. What happens if you do that? And this is all in the chorus, And if you would do that, you sing all the roots, sing the thirds, sing the fifths, hear the music. If you took a tune like anything, like, let's see. Well, anything. If you took anything and snapped on 2 and 4 and played the bass note, that would help you also. And just getting through the tune like that, just playing your bass notes and singing your melodies, That's a step I always do. So you don't even have to play great piano. Just do that. And telling your story. Then the other thing I would do is I would practice it in different rooms. Okay. This is really important. Why is this important? Because do you ever notice you have one room that's carpeted and you have the other room that is, you know, that's not? That's another thing. When you do a videotape recording for your auditions, do not do it in a live room. The sound goes all over the place.
So just to qualify for everyone, when talks about a live room, we're talking about a room that has hard surfaces where there's a lot of reflection of sound, whereas a dead room will have a lot of soft surfaces, carpet, curtains. Yeah, just for those who don't know that language.
Yeah, you'd think it would be the opposite, right? You know, because you know how you love singing in the shower.
Yeah.
But forget it. The sound bounces all over the place, and you can't get a good tone.
It becomes too complex for the microphones to pick up a clean, balanced signal. Yeah.
And you know, there's always something technically I do too. I would always sing with a cork in my mouth. You know, you show your students that, right?
Yeah.
But sing the tune that way, like go through 8 bars of that. That's really helpful too. Now, the other thing that I would focus on is your beginning and your ending. So let's talk about that. All right. So how do you get into a tune? What is your intro? You have to know that. You have to be able to count off a tune. So let's talk about counting off a tune. Sing it first. Like, in the wee small hours of the morning. There's my time. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And know if there's a pickup in the tune. So now we want to know what our form is. If it's a pop tune, what's the form? What are you going down? You know your form, have a roadmap.
Yeah.
That's really important. Now you want to be able to count it off and know what your intro is. Does it have a pickup in it? Does the tune, what note of the chord does it start in? Remember, 5 always goes home to 1. So if it starts on the 1 chord, there's always a 5 to begin with, right? So you could do a 2-5-1 as an intro, 1-6-2-5, 3-6-2-5, things like that. So you want to know, is it in major or minor? And also, what the really important thing is, where's the arc of the tune? Okay, so now you have your roadmap. You know it's A, or verse, chorus, bridge, right? Or no bridge. But where is the point in the tune that peaks for me? And does it peak and go down? What am I doing at the end? So those are your really important places. So you have your intro. How am I going to start it? You could start with a vamp. You could start with a pedal. You could start a little bit differently than the original, right? You could just ad lib over that, take the pentatonic scale, just remember it's how you organize those notes. You could start a song like that. You could start it a cappella. You could start it so many different ways, right? You want to tell your story. Now, where is my arc that it grows? Because too many people, what I saw a lot of times in the audition, there was no arc. Okay, we want that arc. So go to that arc. That's where you're going to peak, right? That's where I'm growing.
Yeah.
Now at the end of the tune, let's say I'm going to vamp at the end or do something. What are the lyrics? Give me any words. All right, just say I love you. Here's an example. I love you. I love you. I love you. Okay, we put emphasis on 3 different places. That made a rhythmic shift. Okay. And then you also want to take your tune and you want to dance it. You want to dance it and feel where the time is. Okay. So those are things you want to get it in your body. All right. What can I do? Where's the upbeat? Can you feel that when you're dancing it? So these kind of things I think are really, really important. Don't forget about the arc. All right.
Yeah.
And
I often refer to the arc as the landscape of the piece, and tying that to the narrative. Where are you taking your audience, and what is the trajectory of the communication?
Absolutely, it's Where is that point? I call it I'm like, where's your aha moment?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
the other thing is, now let's say I'm going to change the melody on your aha moment, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I want to do that. A lot of times you don't have to even go that far away, because in between the notes, let's say if you have a one chord, right? The
Yep.
9 is the D, right? C, D. You have 5. What are your color notes? The 6, right? So there we go. So that's really nice too. So that's really pentatonic-y, right? So you can do that. If the note's here, you could flip and start on the 5,
Yeah.
you know, or and you could slide into it even. So that's why you want to know, so you can say, okay, where are my moments, and let me figure out what I'm going to do. And you notice that songs have got little motifs in them a lot of times. So when you're going to change it, maybe have another motif
Yeah.
that's similar to that one.
Yeah.
That's where you took it, so it fits in with the intent of the composer.
Yeah.
So I always like to say, if I'm going to change it, I want to make it better. Then I don't want to make the tune worse.
That's always the aim.
Right.
So let's. I've just seen the time, and as is always the case in this show, we're always running out of time. But anyway, so let's think about, okay, we've done our prep for the audition. We're coming now to the audition day. What are some tips, some really practical things that we can, briefly discuss or mention that are great things to do in the lead up on that day to going to the audition?
Okay, first is getting your headspace there. So to meditate, all right, and visualize yourself doing a great audition. And some breathing tools like inhale, exhale, the other nostril, inhale, exhale, slow, and do that a bunch, because that'll take down your nervous system, and make it so that you're a little bit more relaxed, and really do it slowly. Inhale and exhale, long, and then, because what happens is we start to breathe shallow. I really like doing silent loss too, like the, and where I'm increasing my reflexive breath. And some yoga stretching. And also I want you to eat well. So make sure you don't go in there, because it's happened to me. Bring nuts or whatever, because when we get nervous, there's two things that happen, right? Our sugar goes nuts, right? And so I carry with you water, carry with you and have it prepared the day before, because believe me, usually the day of, you're going to be running around for some reason. That always happens, right? So have some kind of nuts. If you're allergic to nuts, have something else that's protein based, and if or something that's good for you, that keeps you focused. Have no sugar that day. Right? And then bring water, fruit, those kind of things. And I want you to say to yourself, really start to trust yourself, and say to yourself, I am good enough. And it doesn't, and I'm going to go in there and tell my story the best I can. And I want you to do the audition for yourself and not for anyone else. I want you to feel the music. So when you're auditioning, who cares what they think? Instead, how do you feel? Because when you feel, they will feel.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing, especially when you're starting to audition and you haven't had a lot of experience with it. The very understandable positioning of beginners is to orientate to impress. It's
Exactly.
a very outwardly focused presentation, but yet you can watch really mature performers, people who have had a lot of experience doing auditions and these sorts of activities, and you just get the sense that that the audition panel is observing something that's happening internally. But it's it takes practice, doesn't it? I mean,
Oh my God, it
the
does.
key thing about auditioning is, I don't know, can you hear the kookaburras in the background for my international audience? We've had everything today. Can you hear them?
Yes, I
There you
love
go.
it.
There you go. Yes, we've got kookaburras out on the fence out the front, and workers. The key thing to remember about auditioning is it's a skill. This is a skill that takes practice, and I want to encourage everyone who's watching the show today, if you are not successful in landing a role or a part or a band position in your first audition, that is completely okay.
It's so okay. Believe me, we used to make a joke. God, I sat in so many times when I should have sat out. Believe me, and I always tell my students, like, why I'm a lousy skier? I'm just mediocre because I never wanted to fall.
Yeah.
So I never got any better than just that average swooshing down the hill. But you gotta fall.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like so we all
You've
have
got to
had.
learn to fall, haven't you? Like there's
Oh
actually a
yeah.
skill in the falling.
Yeah, so you don't wind up too bruised, right?
That's it.
So yeah, and you know what what I would do is I would go. There's two things I would do. Oh, I should talk about that. One, I would go to the lyric. Now I come from being vocally abused, having an abused voice, and when you have that, auditions are really hard because once you come back, when you get nervous, everything goes back to that, like to that fear, when you sang and it sounded horrible. So what I would do, there was two things that helped me because my stomach would tighten. I don't know if that happens to any of you. I ground my feet in and I wed my feet. And then I would just I would make myself just on that note, the note that I would freak out about, which is, I could think all the technical things in the world, but that's not going to help it because I'm freaking out. And so the problem's starting from my brain. So I have to get that there. So right before that, and it reminded me of my dog, Jimmy, who used to freak out because he was bit and go after other dogs. I'm like, God, so if I would get it before I got to that note, I'd be okay. And I noticed that was the same thing as my dog. Isn't that funny? So before that top note that I'm hitting, I would ground myself and say, you got this, and open my mouth and let it come out.
And
You know?
that is the very statement that I put on the thumbnail. You've got this.
Yeah.
All of the work that you've done in the lead up to this audition, this is just the next step. A good friend once said, and this is such a great statement, and that is the number one thing that will develop nerves is a lack of preparation.
Yes.
I think it was Shani Russell who said that. Great jazz singer here in Australia, and she's been on the show before, and it is so true. If you haven't prepared well, then you can expect to be nervous.
Yeah. And that cuts down the nerves. Like the more prepared you are,
Yeah.
and that's why I said, guys, that vocal musician, it will help you prepare that.
Yeah.
That's what we did. That's why we did it.
Yeah.
And so and the other thing is that, remember, you may make a mistake on one bar. Please don't take it into the rest of the tune. Let it go. Right?
Yeah. We only have so much mental space, and if you're giving mental space to the mistake that was made in the past, you are not going to have enough mental space to be in the moment and to be preparing for the next.
And the other thing is the music's going on. So now you're holding it in. Now you're. I had a student like that, right? He's a killing singer, and he was so hard on himself. When he would make one little mistake, right, in a performance, then all of a sudden it's carried on. I'm like, Tom, no. Let that go. Who cares? Because most of us missed it. But now we remember it because you carried it on for the next 8 bars.
Yeah.
So You have to let that go. Don't fixate on the mistake while you're singing, because now you're not singing the tune anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't even catch the mistake. Half of us didn't even catch it. Don't worry about
And
it.
that's the beauty of live music. There's something that happens when we compare listening to live music than when we compare listening to recorded music. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know whether there's any research done into this space. Almost certainly there is. But when we're listening to live music, and more importantly in an audition, when we're not only listening but also watching,
yes,
we can't. We're not given to reflecting on what's just happened. We're trying to, as observers, we're just working to keep up with what's happening in the live moment. And so it's important as the performer to constantly leave the past be past. You can worry about that if you need to, and I wouldn't be encouraging you to. You can worry about that after you've finished, when it's done.
Yeah. And it's, what, I think music's like a culture, and like it's like you live it, you breathe it, it's part of who you are, right? So you're practicing, and you have to kind of start to enjoy it. But for singers, I must say that breaking it down whenever, guys, because I know this happens. I mean, sometimes, musicians can take stuff that's like super difficult and we have to hear it. Sometimes I'm giving this music and like, oh, you want me to read this now? And it's hard, right? So we have to break everything down.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So when we break it down, we can learn anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
So, and pick out music. And this is the biggest mistake I notice. The better singers that I have pick out music that's good for them, and they know they're going to sound good. The ones that are like the novices, right? Meaning they don't. I don't want to say. I don't mean novice.
Less experienced.
Yeah, less experienced. They pick out stuff to impress.
Yeah.
And then they like, oh, but I want to reach that, and I have to hit that note and this note, and where are my whistle tones? And oh, geez, but the other singers, like the ones that are professional already, they want to sound good.
Yeah. Yeah. In the audition, a great audition piece doesn't require you to be at your absolute 100% best voice on the audition day. You've got to leave yourself breathability, because the reality is you're probably not going to be at your absolute vocal best on audition day. Life happens, right?
Oh, God. And this is a really important point. Have a few audition pieces in your pocket, like jam singer pieces, and keep getting those. Don't say I'm sick of that tune. No, get that tune really good.
Yeah,
like love that tune so that you have something comfortable, and that's how you're going to beat stage fright. You're going to use those same tunes and go to open mics and do them a whole bunch of times.
Yeah,
who cares if you fall down? Pick yourself up.
Yeah,
that's what it's about in life, and that's what it's about in music. You want to be good, you got to keep picking yourself up. And we love you, and we all want you to do good.
We all want you to do good.
Yeah, we just do.
Yeah.
We really do. You know, it breaks my heart when I see someone in pain, and thinking, oh, I did terrible, or it breaks my heart. So we all have had to pick ourselves up. We've all have had that happen to us.
Yeah.
So, and you can do it, and trust yourself, believe in yourself,
Absolutely.
We believe in you.
And one point just to finish on, because believe it or not, we're out of time.
Oh my God, I'm so
that's all good. The one thing that I often say to the aim of a really good audition is not to land the part. That's a bonus. The aim of your aim as the singer, as the auditionee, is to be able to step away satisfied that you did well, that you're happy with what you did. And then so many times in an audition, you're not in control of what the outcome is. You can sing the pants off a song and still not get the role, the job, the placement, because you don't, sometimes with audition, in fact, a lot of the times with auditions, you don't know what is being looked for, what is the criteria. So
Oh, yeah, that's another thing that's really important. You know, the criteria many times is your phrasing. The criteria is like, did you deliver? Do you hear the harmony? All those things, that's your criteria. All right. So you really want to know, especially if it's any college audition, they want to know that you want to feel the beat. Do you feel that time?
Yeah.
So any of you young singers, learn the blues.
Yeah.
Learn the blues so that you can feel where the time is. Is your beat wide?
Yeah.
You know, feel that. And so you can learn to bend a note.
Yeah.
All right. So listen to Bessie Smith, listen to Ma Rainey, go back that far and get some of those tunes under you, because no matter what you sing, those roots will come through that music.
Yeah.
And you can feel where that time is and feel the story. So a lot of times, that's what we're looking for. Like, all right, are you free in the song?
Yeah.
How do you get free in the song? Okay. Yeah, it gets free in the song because you got to hear those changes. Yeah. All right. So when you're hearing the changes, then you know when you can go over that bar line. If you don't know where the change is, you can't. And that's why you have to be a musician in this.
Yeah.
So that's again why I would say that, that's why we developed that course.
That's a good, there's our arc. That's where we can finish on that. And in fact, we have to, because of time. But, vocalmusician.org, everyone, you can go and check it out. Again, that discount is Dr. Dan 25 off. Thank you so much. It's so generous, Kate, for providing that for everyone, and so generous of you to come along and discuss at the end of the day, this audition thing, it's such a broad, big topic. We could become really even so specific to each type of audition, what's required for a music theatre audition, what's required for a band audition. We don't have time to do that, but I just thank you for chewing the fat with me for the last 50 minutes or so about it, because it's such an important topic for people to sort of understand and to get into. So once again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Dr. Dan, and thank you for all that you do for all the singers.
Oh, thank you. It's so lovely to have you on the show. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. Such a great guest once again. We've covered there was a lot in that today. And sometimes I wish I had the ability to sort of throw up notes for you on screen so that we could sort of remember the things that we're covering, because there's just so much in there. I'd encourage you to go back and watch today's show again, because there was Kate was a wealth of expertise there. So thank you to Kate again. And I've just seen a super chat from Kelly. Kelly, thank you so much for the super chat. All of the super chats go towards the support of the channel, and it's very much appreciated. Next week, hopefully you'll all be able to come back and join us for a Q&A. Going to be a great show where you ask your questions. I do my absolute best to answer them. For the most part, I'm able to answer them, and I hope you'll join us. We do these live shows here at Voice Essentials every Monday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and I'm very much looking forward to spending next Monday with you, which will be the 8th of March, won't it? And anyway, rest of you have got to go to bed now. Many of you have got to go to bed now, and because you're still in February. But I can assure you, March is looking pretty good. I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.